I can start.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, we are here with the Economic Development Commission, New Initiatives Committee. We are officially beginning. Is there an intro or no? That's it. I think that's it. Yeah, okay.
You're good. You're live.
All right, we're live. We're good to go. All right, so I'm handing this over to you, Chair Moore.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone, to our first New Initiatives Committee meeting. Appreciate your attendance today. What I'd like to do is go around and have everybody introduce themselves just to kind of get familiar with everybody. My name is Dale Moore. Been in and out of Southern Maryland since 1982. A long career with the Navy, now doing consulting in a number of different places. So looking forward to engaging here and seeing how we might be able to conceptualize the future for St. Mary's County and make it the best of all worlds. So let me turn it over to Elizabeth. How about that?
Elizabeth Torgerson. I'm the overall chair of the Economic Development Commission. I have been living in the county for the past 32 years, and when I'm not doing this, I am an analyst on base for the JSF program.
Oh, okay. Barbara.
Good afternoon. I am Barbara Ives, and my background, retired Navy. I have a small business called GI Enterprises. I've supported the community for a long time. I'm on a number of boards, so I'm very engaged in the community. And I look forward to working with the Commission to help build our workforce. Thank you.
Excellent. Curtis?
Hi, I'm Curtis Brown. Been in Southern Maryland since 2011. The Navy brought me here, and I'm glad it did. I work at AirTech. I'm a program manager for North America. I'm looking forward to bringing some of my program management expertise, business acumen, and also my passion for this county to the table.
Very good. Excellent. Catherine, did you have any initial comments?
No, I just wanted to say that as the beginning point for the New Initiatives work group, I was going to just share this document as a little overview of the task before us. I thought that might give us a good stepping off point to just help frame the discussion today. So hopefully you can see the screen. Is that a yes?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, good. Our task is to determine if the SEDS can be enhanced by addition of new projects, new content, and the 5 priority areas that we're going to be taking a look at this exercise through here are, as appears, the Airport Innovation District Master Plan Implementation, Sustainable Communities Lexington Park Initiative, as always, strengthening the tie with Pax River to the local economy, workforce development, and diversification and expansion of agriculture, which also includes the aquaculture economy. Not to say that there aren't going to be topics that we may discuss and identify as having a priority status for county growth and expansion, and we will definitely take those other items into consideration. They may not be items that economic development has direct jurisdiction over. So I just wanted to remind everybody that this is the framework that we are coming to this task through. And as we go, and the discussion may include things outside of this framework, and that will be something that we can certainly include as priority areas for other agencies and organizations, but identifying them as being important to the overall economy of the region.
So if I understand it, Catherine, our charge really is to make sure that the SED says what it needs to say and come up with new initiatives above and beyond what's currently in there to propose. Is that correct?
Yes. The SEDS document that you all, I know, have committed to memory is the document that Scott Dempwolf helped us generate,
Yeah.
dated 2015. It was adopted by the county in, I believe, 2017. Kelly can correct me if I've got my dates wrong. A lot of the priorities and assumptions within it are under review, under the document review side. Dale, you're familiar with that. And Elizabeth as well. I think you're both involved on that side. But what we're trying to look at are where are there gaps and opportunities for new programs, new initiatives, additional elements to add to the SEDS in this update process. So yes.
And Kathy, a question for you. So the dates you're referring to, 2015 and adopted by the county in 2017, are you referring to the strategic plan to build an innovation-driven economy document?
That strategic plan was derived from the SEDS document that preceded and was used as the basis for the strategic plan. The actual comprehensive economic development plan was generated through University of Maryland's Scott Dempwolf. And you should have that link as well in with all the other documents and links that were in the calendar invite.
So our main...
It's just
so
a larger,
the
more
SEDS is
comprehensive
really the
document. Excuse me,
analytical
Kurt.
basis from which the strategic plan was built. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. And just for my own clarification, is it SED's tracking document and the SED plan, are they one and the same, or are they two separate documents?
The SEDS tracking document is a status reporting document that shows what initiatives have been undertaken from the SEDS and what their current status was as of the close of 19, early 20.
Okay.
And then, so I haven't seen the actual SEDS document yet, and I didn't see a link to it, but I'll double check.
And where is the tracking document located?
It's in the calendar invite as well, Dale.
Oh, it's in the calendar invite? Okay.
Yeah. And Curtis, if you go down to the bottom of the calendar invite, there's a link. And Kelly also sent out a separate email that had the SEDS link in it 2 weeks ago, just as a general update to everyone. There's a little confusion between the SEDS document, which is the initial document, and then the strategic plan was derived from that SEDS document. The SEDS document has more of the data and the analysis in it. The strategic plan was drawn from that.
Thank you for pointing that out. I just found it.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
So you can just peruse
So our charge, and I'm not sure exactly what the due date was, is to make recommendations for changes to the SEDS, right?
Yes, yes.
And then that would ultimately be considered for changes to the plan.
Right, the update to the
It would
SEDS.
be incorporated into it by extension.
Yeah, right, okay. Okay.
Be incorporated into the comprehensive economic development study.
Any changes that we make to the SEDS as a result of new initiatives would then be incorporated into the executive summary, which the strategic plan is going to become. So the strategic plan will be rewritten into the executive summary that more closely aligns, and more closely and realistically aligns with the SEDS document.
And is there an existing executive summary?
No.
Okay.
Outside of the strategic plan, no.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Elizabeth, I know you're co-chair of the document review committee, it was highlighted that all the data and all the charts, all the graphs, all the tables need to be updated, right?
Yes, and Destiny is going to be working on that by updating, taking all of the 2020 census data and updating it with that. It should be the data should be available, I think, next month.
Okay, so at this stage, our charge is kind of more conceptual in nature. To talk about the kinds of things that might be above and beyond the current listing of efforts or initiatives, right?
Catherine, you want to take that? I'm pretty sure it is. I just want to make sure there isn't anything else to add on.
Ask the question again, Dale, just so I hear it clearly.
What I'm trying to, all the data in the SEDS is to be updated. It's 4 years old or whatever. And the document review committee is charged to do that.
Correct.
So, so that's kind of the analytical basis. Until that's done, what I'm suggesting or asking a question about is our discussions are more conceptual in nature, intuitive in nature, not necessarily analytically grounded unless we have something to draw from. Until such point as data becomes available to provide the foundation for the recommendation that we're putting forward.
Agreed for the existing initiatives, but I think in terms of this discussion from this group, there's also the scanning for additional opportunities and areas that aren't included in the current SEDS, or areas that need to be enhanced perhaps because we've seen some changes in growth in the time since the SEDS was published, in areas where we intuitively know that's where we're heading.
Yeah. Okay.
And are we able to make suggestions or additions to the plan status document? I noticed there were some things that were not addressed that were in another document, which is called the EDC structure for updating comprehensive economic development strategy.
Yeah, that's the one I think that's one we need to really look at. It's updating the comprehensive economic development strategy. I know we talked about that recently.
Yeah, and in the details for each of the 5 objectives or areas, some of those details aren't addressed in the status document. Like, for example, diversification and expansion of local agricultural economy. There's several items 1 through 5 listed. 1 is in there, 2 is not. I didn't see anything in there that mentioned that in the status document. 3, determining proper management approach for the county farmer markets. I didn't see anything about that either. Also, continuing aggressive land preservation efforts. I did see something regarding that, but it was targeted towards base land preservation and not cultural. And also expanding the number of farmers, distilleries, wineries. I didn't see anything addressing that either. So can we make suggestions about new initiatives that could be incorporated into the status document?
Yes, and I was going to say, Curtis, keen eye, the status document is dated 11/13/19, which is the last time that this status document was officially updated, because we didn't have a lot of activity during the 2020 year to report. But there is a time gap in some of the progress and updates to the status document that need to be reflected. And that would be a good action item for us to be able to get done between now and the next new initiatives.
I think within that too, I know we talked about the last meeting about including the YMCA in this study.
Yes, yeah. There were a few items that we addressed. Let's see. And Barbara, I know that YMCA was one of them. I think increased apartment housing was another, or working on general affordability of living.
Yes, it was.
But with particular attention to the number of apartments in the county.
Yep.
So workforce housing, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, always important to know what the system's constraints are, right? If that's the thing keeping us from growing, then we better address it. But, yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
And just to backtrack a little bit, regarding updating the status document, who this committee is responsible for? Is that correct?
Well, the status document, I think, needs to be updated by DED because there has been movement that's not reflected in this formatted 11/13/19 document. So let us take a look at folding in those activities that have taken place that aren't reported in this current doc for that purpose. Because as you pointed out in the 5 priority areas, there are activities listed that aren't appearing in the status update. And that's the time lag that we have between when we were last meeting in this group and the 2020 year where a lot of things were suspended.
Catherine, just an administrative question. So if we have updates to a particular document that we want to highlight, what's the process to do that?
If you have updates to a particular document, you want to make recommendations to the update for the update purpose?
So we identify a change. I think, we just identified a couple in diversification. I'm just trying to clarify the process, publicly available,
Right.
all that kind of stuff.
So, as I understand it, and again, this is not the easiest process, but we would take those remarks at EDC, and then it would be shared from our office to the committee members for update purposes. So it would have to feed through us as the central hub with DED.
All right,
excuse me.
so the process would be that each of us, we see some changes we want to recommend, we would write that up, we get it to you, and you'd handle it from there?
Right, and then the forum here is also available for discussion and for group exchange on those updates. That's the caveat, is that we need to make decisions on those changes as a group.
All right.
And what's the easiest way to, I guess, capture those, like get them to you? Are you taking minutes or keeping track as we discussed, or should we send the changes to you individually? What do you prefer?
At this point, Curtis, what we are asking is for all the documentation and the input to come through us. And Elizabeth, you may know differently from the other groups, but I understand that that's like how document review is also handling it, is that it's coming through economic development and then being distributed back out.
Yes, yeah. The way that it's sort of the format that we have set up is, and this is more to explain it to the rest of the group, is these subcommittee meetings are the primary format that any changes like that will be, or new initiatives will be discussed in. It's not sort of a bit at a time. Hey, I have this idea. Let's include it in that. It's more sort of coalescing it into once a month meeting here, and then whoever the note taker might be for the group would,
Who is that?
you would take it down, pass it on to Catherine. That would go into the larger quarterly meeting that everything else gets digested in.
Do we have a designated note taker?
No, we don't, Curtis. Are you volunteering for that role?
I mean, I could. I'm not afraid to do that. I'm just kind of trying to understand and facilitate things happening.
Yeah, we almost need to have a process map that kind of just visually depicts it so that it's very clear to everybody.
Okay, so I can capture that. I can take minutes. Typically, is there a particular format? I mean, this is my first meeting of this sort. I'm not sure exactly what the best practices or standing practices are. Is there a template or something you could provide? I'm
We
not
could,
doing
I was just going to let you know that the other two work groups, it's been a fairly informal reporting on the minutes, the note-taking. We're using that to represent it. A committee member who's taking the notes then shares them back to DED, and then we distribute them. I think it has to go through board docs, and that's why it has to come to us, because it's got to be put through the board docs process. So,
Okay.
yeah, I can certainly send you some examples but again, this is sort of an iterative, meant to be, exchange and discussion. So it's not as formalized as the EDC format is, but yes, we do want to track what we're discussing, decisions that get made. We had tried to attempt a Google Doc, sort of, being able to share documentation that way, but because of the board doc requirement, that's why it's got to come back to us, and then we send it back around. And it does go before the EDC, anything in terms of the decisions that this group wants to endorse, recommend, or suggest. It'll go through Dale and Christine. You guys will report back to the EDC larger group on the recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah. So moving forward, I'll capture the meeting minutes or the decisions, things that are discussed and finalized. I'll forward them to you. And I guess they'll be proffered to the EDC committee as a whole. Or
They'll be put back out to the new initiatives group. Yeah, I'll circulate to this group.
Okay, that's fine. That works. So, Catherine, you had talked about a number of things going on from this point forward that were planned, in motion, that people might not be aware of. So I was wondering if you could maybe summarize that so we're not, repeating trampled ground.
Well, I think that is touched on a little bit in that the priority document, the 5 areas. We talk a little bit there in terms of the most recent Airport Innovation District. The master plan implementation has begun with the branding of Aero Park, which was presented before the county commissioners yesterday, and was then shared with all the stakeholders and partners in a work session following that. The branding helps us really identify and design and identify and define the district in and around the Airport Innovation District footprint. So that's been kicked off, and I know that was in the strategic, in the SEDS initially, but we do have the master plan and the implementation now underway for that initiative. The sustainable communities in Lexington Park, and I know, Barbara, this is close to your heart, and Elizabeth as well. That is an effort that if this group would like to have an update on, we can have representatives who work on that initiative appear and give us a debrief. That's something that we can certainly schedule for future consideration. There's a lot of activity, multi-agencies, multi-departments within the county government. There's been a lot of activity within that effort, and I think that it would probably be of interest to this group. So that could certainly be something that we incorporate. On the advancements on the local ag front, the Regional Agriculture Center, that is the Northern Farmers Market site, is underway with a full enclosed facility, kitchen. There's also a meat processing, a meat processing facility planned also up in North County, and we could also get the ag development staff members to give us an update on the progress for those ag assets that have been taking shape in this last year that aren't appearing in the documents that are in front of you. I'm not sure otherwise, Dale, are you something
I
specific?
just wanted to kind of benchmark, what's all in the works, I guess, so that people are just aware.
Is it-
I wasn't aware of the farmer's market and meatpacking piece of it. The agriculture, and I think I mentioned the aquaculture is particularly something I think the region has uniquely. I would just want to make sure that, we had that adequately covered,
Yeah.
supported.
And
Dale,
also,
that sounds like,
go ahead,
well,
Curtis.
once the plan status document's updated, it sounds like that should check the box for you. Agree with that? Status of everything.
It should. I'm not sure we adequately covered the aquaculture piece of it. I just want to make sure.
It doesn't. It needs a significant amount more emphasis than what the current SEDS covers.
Yeah, that's what I kind of got that impression. I was up in Prince Edward Island in Canada, and I got to see what some serious aqua farming was all about. And it is a really impressive operation. And I just don't see anything down here that even comes close to how organized and structured and productive they were and are.
Yeah, I think we actually, though, if you all remember back about a year ago, I brought up something along this line about using developing aqua a little bit more. And we talked about doing it over at Piney Point Road at the environment site. And I think that's something that we need to add to our points, but I think we should, we should look at what are the items that we'd like to explore, and then ask maybe like the ag group to do a brief out to us to let us know what the community said these last meeting. Report out what did the ag group say, and share with us what are their challenges, and that we can better know what are they looking for, what do they need help in. And I think we should do that also with sustainable communities. I mean, I think that the big pieces of that, I think, are the YMCA. It'd be nice to have somebody brief out where are we at with the YMCA, because this report's due out in 22, I believe. So we might be just beginning to work on that when YMCA comes about. So I think having these groups that are part of these efforts brief out to us would be very helpful of getting us up to speed of what we need to address to add to. I think the SIDS right now, like you said, is a good document, but it has some gaps, and I think this is a good way to figure them out by asking these community groups who report out regularly, to share with us what they've got planned and how they're addressing it.
I think, I think that's a great idea. In fact, all 5 of these initiatives, it seems like we need to get up to speed on. I'm not sure everybody's level set on all of these, right? I mean, I might have a good idea about the Innovation District, but I'm not sure everybody else does. The sustainable communities, I personally don't know anything about that. The Pax River's ties to local economy. I think that's a critically important piece, and maybe we can hear from the Chamber of Commerce on that one about how we're connected there. I would also want to think about how the community is connected externally. We're focused within the county, but there's a whole kind of export of goods and knowledge and services that is possible, and I'm not sure, and that brings money in. So I don't know that we have that lens really within this framework that we have here. I know that the Naval Aviation Alliance is working on workforce development. Pax River's working on that. So benchmarking that probably would be good. I know USMSM is working on that as well. Eileen Abel's been gearing up on that. There's a lot of discussion about future skill sets and what kind of training we need to put in place today for the future. It's all kind of in a work in progress, but there's a lot of discussions in a lot of different pockets. And so we sort of have to, kind of level set where we are with all that. And as you mentioned, the agriculture and aquaculture. So, Catherine, it sounds like we need to probably set up a series of briefings for, who's available, that we can kind of benchmark these kinds of things. And as we were discussing earlier with Kelly, there's some, benchmarking externally that could be of some real value as well. It was mentioned that we had done some benchmarking a while back with Huntsville. They're different places. I'm not going to, one could say Silicon Valley, you could say these different things. And in all relative to how, the county can exemplify all these best practices in the context of the county itself, right? It's a unique place. Everything has to be kind of filtered. It's how is it applied? Put in context, I guess, is really what I'm trying to say. And the other thing is that it's not clear to me, 10, 15 years out from now, if we were all kings and queens for a day, what would we want the county to look like? What does a vibrant economic community look like in a stoichiometric balance of balanced work, home life kind of situation, best of all worlds, how can we become the exemplars that others want to copy? How can people want to copy Huntsville? Well, why don't they copy St. Mary's County? I mean, I'm just, not that they have those kind of natural resources, but it really is a question, I think, in front of us, because we can put those Lego blocks in place in addition to what's already there to kind of get us on that trajectory going forward. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think those 5 items, the 5 priorities, are pretty broad, that we have a lot of opportunity to be able to expand on all those topic areas, and there's a lot to talk about that would support each one of these items and how we provide information within just what we know, what's going on within our county, to help at least building an outline to what we could do to provide additional information to entrepreneurship, development, new ideas and initiatives. And I think to get those kind of ideas, we'll need to have those committees report out a little bit to let us know where they're at now, because I can't tell you at the top of my head what the ag folks are doing exactly. I knew about a year ago, but with COVID, everything's been a little...
Right.
I would really love to hear a couple reports to some of the leads for those committees, just to share where they're at. I think that would be of great value.
Catherine, are there specific teams, committees, or leads for each one of these 5 areas identified?
I'd say more or less yes. We can certainly make those updates happen. I think they would be obviously helpful in updating on the new initiative side. I think in the meantime, too, we can take a look back at the SEDS to make sure that the objectives still correlate, even though we've had activity since the publication of the SEDS. But there's assumptions in the SEDS document itself that kind of address some of these are outcomes of the original SEDS document. So we want to make sure that we're doing the evaluation as we need to take a look at what the assumptions of the initial SEDS were based on. We can work these updates into the process, but also, as I said, there could be opportunity for us to look beyond what's already been identified and is already in play. And I think that that's the other piece of this exercise. Definitely updates from the ag team. Barbara, I agree. I think it would be great to know more specificity for everyone here on this group, to hear directly of what's been accomplished and where they're heading for future. Same thing on sustainable communities, and being that that's a multi-department, multi-agency effort. The YMCA definitely folds into that clearly. So yes, those 5 priority areas can be included in the new initiatives monthly updates, and that's my job to go get those set up for us. So I can definitely take that one on.
I think, Yeah, I would, from a strategic parlance, it's kind of, that's your as-is assessment, really, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of where we are benchmarking. And once we kind of get that kind of figured out, we can start to think about changes that need to be made and eventually kind of get to a 2B kind of vision, idea, concept that we would want to put together the pieces. So interestingly, I got exposed from Gary Kessler on this, some work that Bowie State was doing on digital transformation as a kind of a thrust. I don't know where something like that would fit in here. Maybe it's in the resilience piece, but the whole world's going that way. Internet of Things is of value, and maybe that exists within the intersections of these 5 priorities. There's a relationship between Innovation District and pretty much everything here when you think about it, right? So there's a synergy that can occur between these activities, and it's just versus having discrete activities, they're actually building, so the sum is greater than the individual parts. It's kind of my point.
And on workforce, an example there, Dale, is that how it affects workforce, because the nature of work obviously has changed, and there's a digital component now that's far more relevant than it was when the SEDS was first published. I think that nature of work in 22 and beyond is definitely a subject for this group to take a look at.
Absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly on that one. I think that the beauty of these report outs from the community, from the folks that are experts in their area of interest, I think it's highly important, because what it does is be a buy-in. And that's what we need to look at, because when we're working on these documents, we can't necessarily say this is what we're going to do. We need to ensure that we have buy-in from the community that, yes, I agree, this is where we need to go. And I think having those report outs, you're gaining the buy-in from the community as a whole in their areas and their areas of concern. And that buy-in is incredibly important for something like these 5 priorities. And I think working together with these community efforts, not only will we be able to move forward in addressing their concerns and being able to plan where our community can go, I think we'll have support of the community too, because they've played a role in understanding what our thoughts are and recognizing what their focuses are for the future.
Barbara, just to add to that, what do you think about inviting these experts, these community members, to talk and share with us their ideas, what they think they need to be in place to help them grow and prosper? What do you think about us sharing with them, well, this is what we had in mind already. Does this make sense? Is this something you guys think you need? And kind of invite the collaboration.
Yeah, I think, Curtis, I love that idea, because we have a conversation going. It's not one person saying, well, I think we need this or we need that, but it's more of a conversation of where are our needs, not what your need is, but what is our needs. And I think that's a great idea, Curtis.
If I may jump in, part of this is just as a reminder that our goal is to establish new initiatives that should be included in the SEDS, but it's one of those things we can't really know where we're going without knowing how we got to where we are in the first place. And I really would like to encourage everyone to read the actual SEDS documents, because I just, in the process of flipping through it, I came across a section on page 76 called Recommendations for the Agricultural Sector in St. Mary's County. And it's recommendation 1, use digital technology to expand the market for agricultural projects and seafood. Recommendation 2, promote young farmers. Third page. Promotion of winery tourism, promote horticulture, promote heritage tourism, promotion of agricultural and seafood tourism. So a lot of the suggestions that we're making are already in the SEDS, and they already closely align with it. So I I know I'm not the chair of this committee, but I would really strongly encourage that each of you read this so we have a good understanding of the foundation that we're working off of, and we can make the tweaks to understand, okay, what gaps do we need to fill in, and we can, bring in the people like Ag and Seafood Board and the Sustainable Communities, the group from the airport, to understand where the gaps are from what the SEDS already addresses.
Excellent.
If I may add,
Go ahead, Curtis.
not only the gaps in the SEDS, but also the gaps in the SEDS tracking status, like what is in progress now, right?
Right.
We missed.
Well, and that will be updated, sorry, I lost my train of thought. That'll be updated contemporaneously along with it. And once we come up with the new SEDS, the new priorities and new objectives will automatically be included in with the tracking document.
And I would say, Elizabeth, to your point about the spending time with the existing document and becoming more familiar, and perhaps it's done by sections where we take a look at agriculture and we really dive into that section. We have the ag group come and report out and then also discuss. But I think that there is a need to take a look at what's being
Already there.
Yeah, what's
Absolutely.
already been identified.
And there are, just as that section covered agriculture, there are other sections that cover strategies for innovation networks, or, Strategy One leverage sponsored research, which we were talking about last time. Strategy 2, nurture and support the club, innovation accelerators. It's locally targeted capital, public-private partnerships. The vast majority of what we're talking about is already there. It's just I think, a matter of honing in what those objectives mean to St. Mary's County and how we can best apply them.
And that's made manifest, I guess, in the SEDS tracking status document. Like, what are we
Yes.
to implement the data? How are we effectively leveraging the data that's provided in the SEDS to
Correct.
affect the community in a positive manner? And part of me, in the beginning of the meeting, the tracking document is not up to date. I think it's about a year.
Yes.
Not up to date. And I think it'd be extremely helpful to have, and I'm wondering when that would be done, when we'd have an up-to-date version so we know what's been done, so we know where we stand, so we can make recommendations based off of current status rather than like.
Right.
Catherine, I don't see why we couldn't focus that in on the next EDC meeting, do a status update for everything and get the tracker up to date.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that, Curtis, the reporting stopped. The activity was slowed by COVID, and then the reporting in this particular document reflects that lag. But yes, there is a need for an update. And I think that the next EDC, which is October?
October 20th, I think, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good goal for that meeting. But also, if we want to proceed, what we would want to do as a group now is identify what is the next priority. Let's focus on that particular area. Let me go get the team to agree to report out in September for what the next section is that you all feel you want to focus on.
And if I could make a suggestion, in my view, based on what I've read so far, the diversification and expansion of local agricultural and sustainable communities initiative are under, there's not much tasking or projects initiatives in that area. So maybe getting an update from them so we can get SA or situational awareness on where they're at.
You're saying those are probably the weakest ones?
Yeah, like when I look at the status document, I didn't see anything that really addressed the sustainable communities. Maybe it did. The tourism you can maybe do a double check there but I'm not sure. And then also the diversification. Out of the 5 things listed, only saw one initiative in place. The rest is not.
Yeah, on
So
sustainable
if we
communities,
have-
Curtis, the challenge there is that that's not a economic development department initiative. It's actually a collaborative across, as I said, many departments and many agencies. It's sort of a large assembly, and it doesn't belong to the economic development department per se. There's a contribution that's made through the department, but yeah, it's not one of our initiatives that we own and drive. But to that point, it does need to have, I think, an update for the group to understand what's been accomplished and what the plans are.
So that would be,
Which one you're talking
those would be my
about?
recommendations.
Talking about agriculture, you talked about
Sustainable communities. That's a collaborative across about 6 different major groups, and everybody has a piece of it. It doesn't necessarily have one place that it resides, making
Yeah,
it a
that's
little
good.
tough to represent on the tracking side. But yes, there are contributions being made by economic development. Bless you.
Bless you.
So
God bless.
I think on deck for discussion right now is what are the next priority areas that the new initiative group wants to focus on for the September discussion.
So we
Or
have, these meetings are an hour and a half, right? So I'm trying to
topic.
think about,
Yeah.
5 different areas, and there are other topics we can bring in as well. But would it be possible to cover 2 in one session, or are we going to dedicate a whole session to, say, agriculture?
I think for it to be an iterative session, you might have to do it single topic for it to have any depth, my feeling, to really look at what's in the SEDS, to do the analysis, to get the update, to have recommendations from the report lead. That's going to, and we take a while to get set up, and, that's an hour easily.
So it seems like, to me, I guess economic development would be directly applicable to agriculture and aquaculture, right?
Correct. That division lives in economic development.
So just ask, would there be consensus to making that a priority for the next session?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
I'd be on board.
I would want to make sure the aquaculture was covered adequately.
Yeah. And that is one thing about the sets is, as it exists right now, the objective was the utilization and preservation of agriculture with a secondary focus on aquaculture. But as more and more farms are being sold off in the county, we're realizing that preservation may not quite be enough, and that it may be more of a matter of actively trying to counteract that loss with new expansion and add on an emphasis or give equal priority to aquaculture, rather.
That's a good point, Elizabeth. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think the focus on aqua is really important, just because that is truly an opportunity. There's an opportunity to grow there, especially what they're doing at the environmental center off of Piney Point Road. That environmental center is owned by the Maryland Resources. And if you've been there, I think that'd be actually a good place for us to go visit, just because what they do there and it's a big warehouse, and it looks like it's abandoned. It's really just repair, but there's an opportunity there to have spat grown there. And we are in Heine. I think I've talked about this before. I talked about it a year ago. But right now, Maryland competes with Virginia on spat, and Virginia is winning on that, and Maryland loses on it. So wouldn't it be awesome to be able to produce our own spat so that Maryland be able to move forward? So that's a huge growth. And we have everything in place, and the agency's working it. And at one time, a year or so ago, they were willing to rent out space so that our agriculture farmers could be able to use that space at a minimal lease cost. That's just a great example of everything's in place. We just need to develop an initiative that supports that. It's really at minimal cost, but what the oyster fishermen love would be the fact we have a place, we have stats that could grow, and they'd all gain from it as a community, not just individuals, but as a community gain from it. I think that initiative is very doable. I think talking to the Maryland Resource Group would be very helpful. The fact they're willing to lease that out, and the county could do that. I think the farmers, agriculture side would be a great way to build our aquaculture. And when you were talking, Elizabeth, about the fact that there's a difference with the fact we're losing our farms, this is a good way to build out.
To counteract it, yeah.
Well, and the beauty of that is it helps to clean the water, right? Which has a catalyzing effect, right? It's like an amplifier. You're cleaning the water. You get a lot, crabs start coming back, seagrass starts coming back, all the stuff starts coming back strong.
Yep.
Right?
And maybe we could make it, after we do the Piney Point place, we could make a detour down to Pier 450 because they actually sell local oysters from 38 Degree North oysters. And one of their big emphasis is on legitimately local seafood. And they're good. I haven't had St. Mary's County oysters in a while and forgot how good they are.
Yeah, I'm personally not familiar with these locations that you're talking about. I'm very interested in
And the Ruddy
that.
Duck St. George's
It's
Island
down-
also harvests oysters fresh and fresh catch right there from.
Yeah.
Kind of all over it. But to my point before, Prince Edward Island, Canada mussels are being sold at the Giant in Lusby.
Yeah.
There's a data point, right?
Yep.
And I just, we've got this fantastic estuary right around the corner here. It's just unbelievable. It's a gift. So I think that would be the one, Catherine, that I think we probably need to tee up.
And that one I can do fairly easily. And if we could also then maybe think of the structure following that for how we'd like to go and give me a little run time to pull the others together. Do you think the sustainable communities might be next? Based on Curtis, I think, you had said that those two seemed as though they needed representation. So,
Yeah, we do. We need to have a grocery store put in Lexington Park, sustainable community right there.
yeah.
Yes, we need that.
Yeah, that's a whole, right? That's the work-life balance thing too, right?
It is.
And when people, when they consider to come down here, there's a lot of different considerations. What kind of job can you get? What's the education system like? What's the housing prices? But what am I going to do if I'm down here, right? What's my lifestyle going to be like? And I think taking a hard look at that would be valuable for us. And it's a moneymaker too, right? I mean, we got all this water access, all sorts of opportunity there.
And I'd like to advocate for trails and cycling, mountain biking. Those are some things, and I'd really like to see more of that personally.
To piggyback on the sustainable communities thing, and what Dale was saying about the quality of life and sort of gearing it towards that. One thing that I think you should sort of be in the back of mind when thinking about this is, and I know, Curtis, you've probably heard it, Dale, you've probably heard it. When people first move down here from outside the area, especially if they have families, they're usually told one thing over and over and over again. Buy a house anywhere but Lexington Park. And I want to, just because, I live down here, I have been in the county for 32 years. my hope in seeing these sustainable communities through is that stigma is removed or at least lessened.
Well, and I think that the effort with the Lexington Park Sustainable Communities effort, and that's what this initiative is focusing on. It's incorporating the Lexington Park redevelopment plan and beyond. And it is about, I think, looking at an area of the county that is requiring, as I said, multi-agency, multi-departmental support. That is a very targeted and specific area. The life quality issues, Dale, that you're referencing might be part of the workforce recruitment and retention aspect. We could fold it in one way or the other. I think, because that would be countywide, whereas the Sustainable Communities effort is very much targeting into Lexington Park. And it's a much needed goal that we've all known for a long time. But there's activity there, and that could be a separate topic for a separate meeting. But I think the lifestyle, life quality, work-life balance, workforce development, those marry up nicely together. I know that there's a ton of reporting that Teresa Schaefer and Key Able are able to do, and some of the colleges are also part of that conversation. We'll decide how far and wide we think we need to go with that update. But I think on the life quality side, again, back to the SEDS, there's a lot of very good direction in the original SEDS. So we want to make sure that we kind of section by section really honor what's there, evaluate it, and then update in and around as need be.
So Kathy, that's a great suggestion. So let's just say we've got the ag and aqua coming in next time. Why don't we take an action to review the SEDS in that section? And you had mentioned that other document as well.
The tracking document?
Tracking document.
The tracking document.
Why don't we take an action to all review that prior to the next meeting? That way we'll be prepared so that when we hear about it, we'll be able to ask, good questions and come up, after the briefing's over, we can kind of summarize our thoughts and think about any recommendations from that point on we want to consider.
Tracking document update, I think the goal there was to have it done by the October larger EDC meeting, because that's a significant and comprehensive update across a lot. And the point of bringing the ag team in would be to update.
Yeah, but I'm saying we as a group take an action to review the documents in that specific area, and then we're well positioned to, assess where we are and if there's anything additional.
Right. So Dale, the ag group coming in, that's a volunteer group for the county government, correct? That's not a community group. Correct?
No, we have an agriculture and seafood division within economic development, led by Donna Sasser. She would probably be the most likely one to report out on the activities in terms of agriculture, aquaculture.
Okay. That Donna works with, that you could use, that's a community representative, like a chairperson for that group, that Donna could supplement what's being shared, but let the community report out.
I'm not aware of a community group per se that addresses ag and aquaculture. I think that there's associated agencies, there's soil conservation, there's RC&D, but I don't know that there's a volunteer-based organization. You're thinking more like a Chestnut Land Trust kind of?
Would it be like investors or nonprofit groups, or who we want to bring in? Like, what do you guys need to see, or what do you guys need from the county government to help you guys expand and grow?
Well, I think what would be helpful for the SEDS exercise is, again, to really take a look at, as Elizabeth pointed out, what's already been identified as the steps and stages for growing the agriculture and aquaculture, we can get those responsible for running those programs to give us an update. And then from there, I think, Barbara, you're looking for community input, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah, I think community input's the way to go because they're boots on ground. They know what's going on. They know where everything that, and they. I think information like that is precious, and so sometimes that gets filtered other ways. But in the community,
That sounds like we may just want to bring in the Ag and Seafood Board for their thoughts on the matter.
Right.
Barbara's, you called it a brief out.
It's the corollary to the EDC, right, for ag and seafood.
Yeah.
So that would make sense to have that board
Barbara,
represented.
community input, and I'd say also like invitation for collaboration. And the way I see that happening is us going to the SEDS document, seeing what it says for the ag section, and saying this is what we're being recommended to do for you guys to grow your industry or whatever. What do you think of that? And are we missing anything? Is it the right area? And do you have any ideas of how maybe we could effectively implement these in a meaningful way?
That's what the Ag and Seafood Board, that's a purpose that they would serve. And with all due respect, we don't have time to go through several phases with each section here. To do the discussion with Ag and Seafood Board, and then after that, community input, and then after that, what have you. This thing needs to be ready to go, ready to update and print out by January 2022. So we have a hard and fast deadline that we need to make sure that we meet.
And I don't know if we covered this, but we have two birds, one stone, like the ag group input, and then also find out who the key players are in the ag community, and have those people come in, and maybe one could go,
That's what I was thinking. Do them both at the same time.
Yeah.
The Ag and Seafood Board are the key players.
yeah.
Right.
I think Chris is spot on what he just said. Explain, address what the questions are, address where we're thinking to go. But what do you think, and how we can mesh it?
Absolutely. And we can accomplish that with having the Ag and Seafood Board at the next new initiatives meeting.
Right, because the Ag and Seafood Board is composed of growers and producers from the community who oversee the activities of the Ag and Seafood Division in the same sort of capacity that the EDC does. They're a longstanding group of people who are in the ag economy. So they would be the ones you'd want to probably hear from.
They are the boots on the ground, right?
Yes. They're the people making a living doing this stuff, or supporting it in some capacity.
Let's see if we can get them scheduled next time around. That sounds excellent.
And that's in September, when we'd have that discussion?
That would be September 23rd, I believe, is the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can, that's a doable goal. I can get that organized. I have connections on that level. Some of the other organizations are outside, or the other initiatives would be organizations from outside of our department, but we can certainly, as I said, organize those that we feel we would really like to have the input from. Again, the exercise will be that much more beneficial if we've spent time on the section that's supporting the priority area, and just making sure we're still valid, that the assumptions are valid, that we're heading in the right direction. Dale's got an idea, I can see it.
No, I'm thinking. Go ahead, keep going.
So I'm thinking, since it sounds like September 23rd is going to be kind of full because of what we're going to bring in some community individuals to talk about. I love the way Curtis summarized in a very clear, easy way of how we can bring the community and ask those questions and get that information, be able to move forward in that. So I like that. One thought would be queuing up what's next in the sustaining initiative that was discussed.
Is that in October? I'm sorry, Barbara, to interrupt you. Would we have that discussion? Would that be the following month?
It'd be like November, I think, is October.
October.
Yeah.
And it would be a similar, copy paste in terms of the approach. with the sustainable communities. So,
Right. I think following that format is really effective and it covers all the bases. I was thinking for the sustainable communities, I know within the government there's a lead. It used to be Robin Finicon, who used to be the lead for Lexington Park, and then it changed over to Vicki Vogt. And I'm not sure who's doing that job now, but she oversees everything going on in Lexington Park.
For the CDC?
Taylor Smith
Or
is
the
the CDC director
Yes.
now.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
deputy director under
think-
Vicky.
Right. I think having that brief out, maybe a couple community leads too, or somebody from her board, a couple folks from the board, which would be great from that, just to share where they're at in Lexington Park and what their new challenges are, and just to cue that up so that we have a nice plan in place of how we're going to get information and how we're going to sort of summarize it and move forward and move to the next area. But just to get the word out so they can plan and maybe choosing some board members and get some ideas together to brief out.
So that takes care of two. I'm looking at the Innovation District, the strengthened ties to PACS, economy, and workforce development. Those seem pretty tightly interrelated. I don't know if that's something we can handle in a single session, maybe an extended session. I'll just throw it out there because we are time constrained.
The Innovation District, we might be able to cover in the same meeting as something else, because I know that there's already a separate steering committee meeting for that, and the meeting that they had introducing the Aero Park brand. It seems like they're well on their way to having a solid, almost step-by-step plan of what they need, how they're going to do that, how they're going to get from point A to point B to point C.
Right, I'd say that
agree.
the two that tie together nicely are the Innovation District implementation, because we do have a master plan on that that's quite good, and I think that we're, going to be able to talk about its moving forward, and that ties directly to PACS and the local economy. I think we could probably put those two into the same session, and then maybe take workforce and fold workforce and the life quality component together on a second meeting. It might those might divide up, because there's quality of life issues, Dale, I know that we've talked about, and they fold in somewhere. It might be under workforce development, attraction.
That wasn't listed in these five. I don't
Recruitment.
think, was it?
No, I'm just sort of folding it in on a sidebar.
No, I like that. No, I think that makes sense.
So then that gets us
So-
4 presentation meetings, meetings with presentations in them. But I think we also need to be cognizant that each of the meetings has to, also produce outcomes for the update of the SED. So we'll have to do that in tandem.
No, I think it's great. I like the suggestion of combining the two and then having workforce separate. I do think we need to focus on workforce development, because in 2016, the gap analysis went out and it still hasn't been addressed, what they do for our youth. Our youth have been neglected, seriously neglected in the community. And that gap still exists. And we need to help our youth out, and we need to think about how that can be done, because it's outstanding. It's still an issue that tends to be ignored.
Life quality. Yeah, that can be put under that life quality. And again, looking at the SEDS, I'm going to keep pointing us back there, because section by section, you'll see that these, and Elizabeth's laughing, you'll see that these subjects are
No,
represented.
I'm smiling because we've got a tight deadline, and after all, the SEDS is the document that all of this is based around. We're not
Recreating.
reinventing the wheel. Thankfully, we're just improving it,
Right,
Yeah.
and to
right.
to know what the engineering of it is already.
And
There's a
Barbara,
lot of great efforts ongoing. And so, we can cursory look at some of these, but, they're off and running.
and I think that
Workforce
it's about,
development, when I think of workforce development, I actually, people development, it's kind of a more holistic than workforce. It fits in, like you said, Catherine, with quality of life, all the elements associated with people. You know, they may have concerns with transportation. I mean, that might be something to think about.
That is a concern. I mean, we don't have adequate transportation around the county.
The county needs the kind of climate, culture that is nurturing, that's thriving, that's learning, that's developing, and it's growing. And so I don't know if there are things we can do to kind of promote that mindset, that attitude, that orientation. Something to think about.
It being half the county and the other half, I don't know about that.
Well, and I think that where this exercise comes in is that we will be able to calibrate, maybe put additional emphasis on what's possibly already featured within the section of the SES that we're focusing on, and maybe it's an order of priority, maybe it's, you know, sort of calibrating things, moving things up, and creating an updated prioritization. A lot of these issues, I think we've all been looking at them as long as we've all been in the county. So it's just a question of taking a fresh look at the document that will help us determine what's a priority, what's a point of emphasis, who's responsible, and how we go forward.
One of the things I want to mention, just for people's essay on the strengthen Pax Rivers ties piece, there's an emergence of new business models going on inside the gate relative to using these other transactional agreements, using small business instead of big business. There are huge opportunities for local, small, medium-sized companies, and that's growing all the time because it saves money and time on these programs to do that. And I've mentioned this before, research is kind of a key component to innovation, precursor. The base spends $150 million a year, every single year, in small business innovation research, and very little of it goes to the county. And yet the customers are right here. So I just kind of throw that out there. I think there's so much latent potential, and a lot of that stuff has commercial spin-outs. That's the other thing.
Right.
So food for thought.
Oh, yeah, we can certainly include that in the Pax River portion, don't you think, Catherine?
Definitely. But I think that you're speaking directly. I mean, Curtis knows he's in that lane. You know well this ability for the smaller businesses to support a lot of the activities at PAX in a way. But to your point, Dale, I think that there's emphasis now for really reaching out to and including those small business contracts.
Well, and one of the insights I heard the other day with this consortium they have now, which is in other transactional agreements, which, oh, by the way, can feather into production. So if you want to produce stuff, you can do that. Is that, like, I don't know, some very, very high percentage of the awards are going to companies that are not primes that you probably never heard of before. So we're creating a much broader competitive field versus how the typical model is, which is throw it over the fence to a prime and they got a bunch of subs and sub-subs and all that stuff. We're truncating all that, going directly to the middle-sized, the small companies to accelerate the process, and government's playing a stronger leadership role, and it's going faster and it's going cheaper. And I think that's going to, I'm pushing hard in other work I'm doing to drive that model going forward. I've been working at Defense Acquisition University and these other folks to kind of promote that model. I think it's proven. It's a huge opportunity for economic development. It helps everyone. It's win-win all the way around.
And I think that
Especially
St.
local.
Mary's has just such a great population of small, nimble companies who are really primed for that.
Well, and I think I mentioned I'm talking to folks at the state level in the Commerce Department. I was stunned by how many innovation, technology, DoD companies are in Maryland. I really had no idea, and there's a bunch of them. So, those are liaisons, those are connections, those are partnership opportunities that are local. right? So you get the face-to-face interactions, build those relationships. So I think the local community has the opportunity to understand what's going on inside the gate, to build those relationships inside the gate, and to partner with those enabling companies. Local would be good, right? Statewide would be good. To 1 + 1 = 3 kind of thing, right? Because a lot of companies don't understand what goes on inside the gate, how it operates, how it works, who's who in the zoo, particularly with the new organization. I'll just say that. So there's a lot to be understood there.
Yeah. Okay, we're sneaking up on 6 o'clock, folks. This was a good session. I wanted to just mention one thing that we have the opportunity, and Kelly will have to expand on this a little bit further, and we may do it in writing out to the group before the next session. But there is a consultant that is being engaged, or that they're going to go out with a scope of work to engage a consultant to assist on the economic resiliency chapter that's being added to the SEDS. There's an opportunity for new initiatives to have access to some of that consulting support in areas that we feel are justified that we could use it. So I'll throw that into the mix for consideration. I think our approach here is a good one, but where there may be additional lifting needed, we have potentially the capacity to engage the consultant.
Does the consultant, you putting an RFP out? Is that what you're doing?
I think that, yeah, Kelly's running that one through her economic resiliency group. And I think that the scope right now is looking at economic resiliency, but there is a segue from resiliency to new opportunities and new initiatives. So.
Well, so would benchmarking external to the county be something that could be considered?
Yes.
If we collectively came up with some areas of interest we wanted to explore, whatever they may be, then that's a menu by which they could propose against.
Yes.
And we could get some good benchmarking done. Then we got something, because we can't travel.
And that would be very valuable addition to the update to the SEDS.
And 2 questions. Is this the $35,000 consultant that's in the EDC structure document?
Correct.
And then what's the timeline on this? So how quickly we need to get you input?
As I said, I'm going to have to let Kelly represent the timing on that.
Okay.
I don't know, Curtis, but we can find that out.
So one of the things, and I'm not sure where it fits on here, I know we're short on time, but I think I might have mentioned this before, is there is a lot going on around the world in smart cities, and that immediately translates to me to smart communities. And it's a lot of digital stuff, it's sensing, it's data analytics, it's all those kinds of things. But the point is to make better informed decisions and plans and strategies. So I just throw that out there because Bowie State's got this big initiative. It's a grant program for digital transformation. I don't know, they got $65 million or something. And anyway, food for thought. I don't know where that would fit in here other than it would apply to everything. So anyway, I throw that out.
Okay, folks.
Could I ask you a question right before I know we're going to close out? But so tell me what your thoughts are, since we have 3 defense contractors here. What's going on with teleworking? Everybody's wearing masks now. What's going on at the base? So I kind of know what I've heard, but you guys live it. Are you teleworking or are you in the office?
Teleworking 90% of the time and going in as needed.
The airfield is a bit of a unique creature. We have flight operations, maintenance going on all the time, so everybody's working in the office. I'm sitting in the office now, actually. So it's not mandatory, but people have the option to telework here. But I think a lot of people just feel comfortable coming to the office.
No No, that's good to know, because as we move forward on workforce development, teleworking and folks not teleworking but in person is going to make a huge difference in how we move forward as a community in developing these new ideas. And so I know for our area, the area, and what I've seen, I'm actually outside PAX today, and folks are not going, they've changed their minds and they're staying at home teleworking versus going into the office. So it's interesting to see, because initially everybody was like, we're going to go in person at least 3 times a week, but now that's backed off again. So I think as a community, when we started to think about brick and mortar, that affects a lot of people. It affects our restaurants. It affects our breweries. It affects our childcare.
Everything.
People are affected. And so if
Definitely.
we're going to plan stuff 22,
And I think that goes in under our nature of work, Barbara, under workforce development. Absolutely. That is a
Yes.
topic that really will impact how workforce is viewed, recruited, retained. And I think that
I think we can interface well with economic resilience on that, because I know that that's something that they're looking at as well.
good point. That's a very good point. And I promise, Barbara, you will only get one Zoom link on your next calendar invite. I'm not going to give you multiple choices. Yeah,
I tried them all. Let me tell you, everybody was spinning, ready to go.
it was a perseverance test, and you all passed.
To Barbara's point, I think there was a certain mindset prior to Delta, and I think Delta kind of threw a wrench into the works, and so people kind of changed their mind. But to your point, Barbara, if telework and collaborative platforms, product lifecycle management tools, all the things, JSF student, other, if they're accessible, all of a sudden it becomes wherever you are, you can engage. So, it's something to think about, just as we conceptualize, we want to have a county that's attractive for all these good reasons, right? What is it people don't like about things? What is it people like about things? And try to strike that right balance, best of all worlds kind of stuff.
I can tell you one thing right now, availability of different options for broadband instead of Atlantic owning the vast majority of the market, and it essentially has turned into a monopoly.
Yeah.
Good point.
If I could inject a little optimism, I don't know if or Delta or anything it's not long term. So my hope is in 5 to 10 years it'll get a non-issue. And I think telework will be a big factor. A lot of people are going to do that, and there's cost savings, overhead costs are reduced because there's a lot of benefits to doing teleworking. But I think we should be looking at the 10-year vision, how that looks, and work towards that, not towards present crises.
Well, that doesn't mean that what we're in today won't influence things down the road.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, that's why I said.
And we also need to plan for the eventuality of, and that's part of what the Economic Resilience Committee is covering, is planning for the eventuality of if something happens again, whether it's a natural disaster, pandemic, cyber attack, or another sequestration. How is the economy going to react to that? And how is the workforce, more to the point, going to adjust to it?
So this is all about agility and diversity, right? I mean, being able to adjust as changes, seamlessly almost, right?
Yeah.
And then to have diversity of opportunities versus, a single focus. So you can pivot, right?
Yeah.
As necessary, yeah.
I-
Or if we go to war with China, right? So that's not the craziest thing anymore.
It is
So
not.
we'll see how that shakes out. I'll be talking about that next week, Thursday, up at the Higher Ed Center, by the way. I've got a talk at PPP on that. It should be really good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. Okay, I'm done.
No, you guys
Somebody
can
get the
keep
gavel.
going.
We're just getting started.
But yeah, I know, I like
Yes,
it.
it's a nice thing.
I mean, it bodes well. I appreciate you all coming through this evening and getting this new initiatives group started so well. So thank you very, very much for your time. Curtis, thank you for being sort of voluntold on the note-taking. I'll look for that from you, and then we'll circulate it back out. We'll get started on September's effort. I'll get that lined up, and everyone's going to read and commit to memory the ag sections to be prepared for September. Thanks, everyone.
I think that's great.
Great.
I think that really will make a difference.
Bye now.